Hello everyone, this is Amanda McGuire and this is my Week 7 discussion board for MPA 570. From 2010 to 2020, the total green space in Riverside County was reduced from 73% to 51%, a total of a 22% reduction. Further defined, green space is open land areas reserved for plant life and used for recreation and to improve air quality in the region. As the total green space in the county was reduced between 2010 and 2020, the quality of the air in Riverside County changed from an average range of 50 to 80, which is moderate, to 150 to 170, which is an unhealthy range. Stakeholders involved in this problem analysis are the Wilderness Society, a U.S. nonprofit fighting for the conservation of natural green space in order to improve air quality and preserve animal life. They believe that the continued reduction of green space would ultimately cause a loss of animal habitats and elimination of species. Another stakeholder is the Urban Garden Initiative. This is a nonprofit located in Southern California that their goal is to increase green space by using areas for community gardens and educating youth in the land use and different policies. They believe that the reduction of green space creates unhealthy air quality and a higher reliance on outsourced food and medical products. This reliance on outsourced food and medical products also creates a higher financial burden on the residents in the area. The final stakeholder with relation to this policy issue is the IBEW 440, or International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. This is a labor union that supports contractors and construction workers, and they believe that they advocate for construction, electrical, and plumbing workers and to have continued work. A reduction in green space has caused an increase in construction jobs, and any policy restricting construction restrict job opportunities. The first policy which addresses this problem is the Riverside County Board of Supervisors Good Neighbor Policy. This creates development requirements for construction projects to minimize the negative impacts, including reduction in green space and increase in air pollution. This applies to any project with a building of 250,000 square feet or more, and they are required to complete an air quality study as well as a health risk assessment prior to construction. It would require 300 feet between the building site and the nearest residence to maintain green space. It also requires landscaping of the site to include 50% with 36-inch box trees and a long-term agreement to maintain landscaping as approved by the city. The outcome would be that it would maintain green space in Riverside County at 50% by including green space in landscaping requirements. It would have an overall reduction of air pollution and improvement in air quality by maintaining current green space. The added requirements would also make it harder for projects to be approved, so there would be less construction going on at one time. Budget-wise, the direct cost associated with this project is in the county hiring inspectors or outsourcing inspectors to complete the air quality and health risk assessments. This could be paid for through fees by the contractor. Additional costs would be training on the new policy for city planners and the building inspectors. There is one caveat with this. There is the option for a district to choose not to implement the policy if it does not benefit their constituents. An alternative policy would be the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Land Revitalization Act. This is where there is a reclaiming of abandoned property for redevelopment, and this space is used as a mixed-use space to include commercial, residential, and recreation space with a requirement of a minimum of 30% used for green space. The anticipated outcome would be an increase in total green space in the county to 70% by utilizing current properties, as well as an increase to improve air quality to healthier levels. The timeline here would be 2 years to complete a grant proposal and award of a project, and 3 years from award to complete redevelopment, for a total of 5 years per project. Budget-wise, funding comes from a combination of federal grant money and developers to fund each project, and the budget would vary based on size and use of the space. A second policy alternative would be the California Natural Resources Agency's urban greening policy. This is a policy which allows state grants for disadvantaged or lower income areas to develop green space in urban areas to improve air quality. The anticipated outcome would be an increase in total green space to 65%, utilizing smaller spaces and city land. The timeline would be 4 years, 1 year for grant proposal and 3 years for development once awarded. The 3 criteria used to evaluate each of the policies are effectiveness, efficiency, particularly fiscal, and the administrative feasibility. For effectiveness, we looked at how effective each policy would be in creating a total green space, as you can see there. Secondly, for efficiency would be to evaluate the cost related to each policy and how that relates to the total impact or benefit of the policy, and which policy would be most fiscally feasible with the greatest impact. And lastly, administrative feasibility would be how likely each responsible entity would be to implement the policy well without it creating an extra burden. So my final recommendation is a combination of the US EPA Land Revitalization Act, tailored to be a county policy, where this has the highest increase to green space, is the most physically feasible with grant funding, and there could be additional grant programs available from the state. Administratively feasible because it requires less staff and using volunteers to implement, and the timeline would be the one drawback in that it would take longer to complete, but would have an overall bigger impact in the problem. And that's all I have. Thank you.